I'll just share my slide. Let's make sure everyone sees that. I want to enlarge it. Okay. You can all see the screen? Okay. In 1978, Elie Wiesel published a poem, The Tale of an Egon, in honor of his friend Rabbi Wolfe Kelman, Executive Vice President of the Rabbinical Assembly. This poem was quickly forgotten and sunk back into the margins of history. Thanks to a bookseller in Jerusalem, Mr. Michael Pomerantz, the poem has recently been reprinted last year as a book, as you see here, as a book in itself, and I hope it will now attract more attention. The Tale of an Egon begins with a tragic scene. The Nazis, or the enemy, is referred in the poem, demand from the leaders of the Jewish community of the ghetto, as you see, somewhere in the east, during the region of night, under skies of copper and fire, to hand over 10 Jews. The enemy does not hide its intent, death by hanging, to revenge the hanging of the 10 sons of Haman by the Jews some 2,400 years ago in Shushan, the capital of then Persian Empire. Tomorrow in Purim, and the enemy planning to avenge Haman's 10 sons will hang 10 of our own. In the poem, the enemy does not choose its victims, but rather it casts this terrible responsibility on the heads of the Jewish community, the Judenrat. Second, the deed is portrayed as revenge by the Nazis, where it is actually an act of torment aimed at abusing the Jews, and certainly a humiliation of Judaism as well. Third, the community leaders are unwilling to make a decision choosing 10 Jews. Instead, they turn to a rabbi and ask him to rule in accordance with halacha. The rabbi is shocked by the question to the depth of his soul, trembling. He asks for time to deliver his decision to the community leaders. I'm quoting, "I wish to be left alone. I must think, meditate. I must go to the source, explore the depth, and question the past. Come back later. I shall be waiting for you. I promise. Yes, I promise not to stay behind, not to be spared." The rabbi engaging study of books becomes an astral journey in which he meets admirable figures from the Jewish history, such as Maimonides, the Rambam, Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov, the Besht, Rabbi Eliyahu, the Gaon of Vilna, and Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Redichev. First and foremost, the rabbi here goes to his bookshelves to consult the Rambam, who has foreseen all situations of all societies. His decisions are clear and precise. Maimonides replies that he has in fact given a clear halachic ruling in such a case. And that's the words of Maimonides in Hebrew. We'll see if Gentiles were to tell them, give us one from amongst you so that we put him to death. And if you refuse, we will surely have to look, maybe it's my printing mistake, kill you. Let all of them be killed, rather than willingly hand over to them one Jewish life. These are the words of the Rambam. However, the rabbi criticizes Maimonides, and the last Maimonides concludes admitting, these are the words of Elie Wiesel, "I could not foresee your predicament, your tragedy. No, unfortunately, Rabbi, no, poor brother of mine, I, Moshe, son of Maimon, can be of no help to you or yours." There is no doubt that the basis for this opinion lies in the fact that Wiesel constantly stressed that the Holocaust was an exceptional event, both in Jewish and in the world history. In September 2002, Elie Wiesel was invited by Herzl College, my academic home, to speak in a seminar in honor of the book launch, A World Built, Destroyed, and Rebuilt. Rav Yehuda Amital confronts the memory of the Holocaust. After Wiesel spoke and affirmed that he had never lost his faith, despite harsh phrases he wrote in his book, Night, Rabbi Amital stood up and spoke. Without referring to this poem, which I assume he never heard about, Rabbi Amital refers to Maimonides in a remarkable similar way to the Tale of an Egon. And these are the words of Rabbi Amital. In Igeret Teiman, Maimonides writes that ever since God gave Torah to Israel, the nations of the world have been fighting against us and against the Torah. Yet they will not succeed. And already the prophet, I'll use Ishaiah, prophesied, no weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. Maimonides, and presumably also the prophet Ishayahu, did not imagine that there would come a day where there would be no more answers, but that day has come. Maimonides says that there will be an answer to every question. However, there is no answer to this question. I want Maimonides to know that we have experienced such questions for which there are no answers. No answer. Let us return to the poem. After meeting Maimonides, the ghetto rabbi's journey continues in no chronological order. He flies through time back and forth and meets the Tanaim, the Emoraim, the sages of Ashkenaz, of Sfarad, all of whom submit their opinion to that of Maimonides. And I'm quoting, if he, our teacher and our guide, Moshe ben Maimon, if he cannot help you, how could we? Close quotations. The rabbi does not give up and does not despair. He continues his journey, and I'm quoting, from century to century, from guide to guide, the rabbi comes to the best. Close quotations. Indeed, the best, as expected, thinks outside of the box and responds originally. He does not answer the rabbi's questions. He has no answer that is made up from words or letters, but rather the best bursts into melody, a heavenly nigun, a melody performed vocally without words. The rabbi hopes that it is within the power of the best's nigun to break the chains of evil, in the words of Eli Wiesel. The rabbi believes that the best's nigun works miracles and has hidden power that rise above levels the powers of angels and of seraphim. He described countless times in the Hasidic praise literature. However, in this case, the Baal Shem Tov is unable to activate and apply the miraculous forces of the Nigun to such an exceptional period as the Holocaust. The uniqueness of the Holocaust does not allow and even prevents miracles, and even hopes for miracles. There is no time to elaborate on the following meanings of the rabbi. Rather, let me just note that the divine nigun of the Bech, which was presumably presented at this stage as not helpful, returns in the end of the poem in a different manner. The nigun does not save, the nigun is saved. The Kehila will perish altogether while singing the nigun on their lips. However, the nigun escaped the enemy and by that achieved immortality. Therefore, and you see here the last words of Wiesel, it continues and will continue until the end of the time and beyond, as Wiesel concludes his poem. I must confess, for many years I thought this poem is a product of Wiesel's imagination, a purely literary work. However, several years ago, while I was a research fellow in Yad Vashem, I learned that such cases did in fact take place. Here, a document in the Ghetto Fighters House archive containing a testimony in Polish written on a typewriter says the following. From a number of towns belonging to the so-called Wartago, I don't know if my German pronunciation is the right one, but it's a region in the area of Lodz, or in Polish, Łódź, and particularly from the surroundings, here it says of Lodz, we received information about a particularly macabre prank of the Nazi beasts. In all these towns, on the 3rd of March, this is 1942, which was the day of Purim, Germans caught 10 innocent Jews and hanged them in public on gallows set up specially for this occasion. There were cases where German authorities formally addressed the Jewish council and asked, as the Judenrat, and asked them to provide 10 Jews with the aim of hanging them. The same month, an article appeared in Warsaw in an underground Yiddish newspaper, Jugendruf, and I'm quoting, on Purim, the 3rd of March, the Germans ordered the Jewish council of the Junska Wola to make 10 men available to them. For those Jews sent, hanging trees were placed in the middle of the city. The 10 unfortunates were hanged. All the Jewish residents were forced to be present at the time of execution. In another document, we are told that this was done to avenge the hanging of 10 sons of Haman and the killing of Persians by Jews in all the land from India to Kush, Mihodu ad Kush. Okay, the next slide has hard pictures. We're dealing with the Holocaust. I'm asking for apology ahead of time if it bothers some of us, but what can we do? I'm a grandson of sole survivors. Several of these testimonies and pictures were published many years before Wiesel published the Tale of Enigo, and it is not inconceivable that he was acquainted with such evidence. Obviously, there are differences between the historical background and the theme of the poem. The Jewish Council did provide, unfortunately, 10 Jews, in contrast to the Tale of Enigo, in which the rabbi eventually rules, according to Maimonides, that, I'm quoting, the enemy will kill, but his victims will not be our victims, end quotation. And the Judenrat refused in the poem to supply 10 Jews. And therefore, the whole community marched to its death. You see here pictures, some from Yad Vashem, some from Bet Lochamei Getaot, all of hangings in Purim 1942 in 10 different settlements around the area of Lodz. There are several historical examples that can be found where the Jewish councils of the ghetto turned to rabbinical authorities to decide on issues of life and death. There is one such case which bears remarkable resemblance to the Tale of Enigo. The last rabbi of the Kovno community, Rabbi Avram Dov Kahana Shapiro, who died in the Kovno ghetto, was asked by the local Judenrat to rule a question of collective life or death. And this is what it says about him. The rabbi heaved a deep sigh. The question was complex and difficult. He asked them to come back to him at 6 in the morning, which is exactly very similar to the poem. When the council members returned to his house at 6 a.m., they found him poring over books, which lay piled upon his desk. His face bore visible traces of sleepless night and the great ordeal he had gone through to find scriptural support for the ruling on the terrible question facing the council. Rabbi Ephraim Oshri, who survived the Kovno ghetto, added in his Yiddish book, Chur Ben Lite, that he saw that Rabbi Kahana Shapiro, and that's a quotation in the bottom, whole body was trembling. The rabbi directed me to the great 12th century scholar Maimonides and his ruling on Kiddush Hashem. This was published in Montreal, 1951, and for sure was known to Wiesel. The close parallels between Rabbi Kahana Shapiro and the ghetto rabbi from the poem are pretty clear. Both tremble and stay awake all night. Both are engrossed in the issue of let him be killed rather than transgress. Yahareg ve'al ya'avor. Both are immersed in Maimonides on the issue of Kiddush Hashem. Both testify that this is the most difficult question they have ever faced. We're ending soon. Last but not least, the nigun. By comparing the use of the term nigun in other writings of Wiesel, it seems to me that it means the joyful and painful connection with the Jewish past and tradition. The community has been destroyed. Many communities have been destroyed, but the nigun continues to exist. The nigun is a sense of the past, endless longings for an ancient tradition and a life that will never return to be as it was. In Wiesel's book, From the Kingdom of Memory, he says, I'm okay with time. I would give much to be able to relive a Sabbath in my small town, the whiteness of the tablecloth, the flickering candlelight, the melodious voice of my grandfather, the Chassid of Vishnitz, inviting the angels of the Shabbos to accompany him to our home. I ache when I think of these things. Now, I'm not sure he's talking about Shalom Aleichem, because there is another Hasidic nigun, which is used usually on another poem, which is more specifically talking about a company. I will hear it let's listen for it for 1 minute. You see the words to the right. I have a feeling that Eli Wiesel is referring to such a nigun. Let's hear it, and by this we'll finish my paper. One second. Did you hear it? Do you hear the music when I put it on? Ah, okay.
Yes.
Why isn't it?
שיפקדוני ברחמים, שיפקדוני ברחמים, וברכוני בבוא לביסי, ביום קודשנו, כי הדלקתי נרוי סי ויצאתי מתוסי, והחלפתי סמלוי סי לכבוד יום השבוס.
I think that in this sense, this longing to the past, I believe that also the nigun of the late Eli Wiesel continues to play. Thank you.